Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Don. I'm out here in some woods across the road. It's a small little patch of woods, maybe about 15, 20 acres, here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's kind of a hemmed-in area. I can see tail lights, cars going up and down Lewisburg Road out there. Right here on the corner of Fox Road and Lewisburg. There's a nice little patch of old woods, some very old woods. Over this way there's a bit of a glade. It's kind of overgrown now. Over the years I've seen it grown up some. Old well out there, old foundation to a house that used to be out there. Out this way, pretty old deciduous forest. And well, it's dark as hell down here. You know, I'm not out here boogering looking for Sasquatch. I'm a old wood booger. If he's around, he's ducking and weaving through a lot of cars to get here. But oh no, I think probably about the only thing I'd scare up out here is a startled deer. But it's full moon down here in the woods. It's pretty dark, so damn, I mean, even a deer snuffing at you is gonna scare the hell out of you. But it is what it is. I just wanted to come down here and make this little video, getting close to Halloween. You know, some traditions, some Celtic traditions will tell you that Halloween isn't actually the 31st of October. It's the full moon closest to 31st of October. And since we're looking at that full moon right now, thereabouts, I figure this will do the trick. Who knows? Could be down here doing a wild hunt. Probably get away with it. I want to tell you a story. Something that happened to me out in these woods. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's Bigfoot related, because it isn't. But if you'll stick with me a little bit, I think you'll find out why it is I'm saying this. See, I used to be involved in Celtic practices, Neo-Druidism, things of that sort. One of the two circles that I established was right down here in these woods, as a matter of fact, back over my shoulder a ways. I used to come down here about this time of night and cast a circle and conduct ceremony and just spend time down here. And now I don't necessarily follow along those paths anymore, but I still remember some things that happened. One night I was down here, had a good friend of mine, a fellow named, I'll call him Chris, we'll leave it at that. Chris and I were down here. I'd cast a circle. We were in the circle, and I noticed he kept looking out there toward the old deciduous forest. Now, you know, I know there are a couple of trees out there that are old trees, old magnificent trees, and I call them trees with attitude. And you get some bad vibrations off of some of the things out there. But I'd been looking out that way, and I'd kind of sensed that there was something out there, and that it had sort of a malevolence to it. And I looked over and I noticed Chris was looking out in the same area. And he had a sort of a look of apprehension on his face. Now, you got to understand, Chris, he's about 6'4". He's a big dude. And I've not seen a whole hell of a lot that scared this guy. But he had a look of apprehension on his face, and it caused me to look over at him and just say, Chris, you know, what's going on, buddy? He said, there's something out there. He says, I can feel it. Which is precisely what I had been doing. And I hadn't said anything to him, and before that, he hadn't said anything to me. But we both felt something malevolent out there in the woods. And at one point, and I can't say for sure that Chris felt this way, but at one point, I felt it moving across the woods, coming down to a little opening area that would allow it to come into the glade, which is where the circle was. And I remember taking a hold of a ceremonial staff that I had, just closing my eyes and gripping that thing as tight as I could, and just sitting there, and just, maybe it was the blood pulsing, but it just felt like something was just radiating through that entire staff. Like I said, maybe it was just the blood pulsing, maybe it was, you know, all the adrenaline. You know, I have to admit, I was a bit on the nervous side. After a while, it just sort of dissipated. When it got down to that area where it would have entered into the glade, it just sort of dissipated. And Chris and I, you know, I withdrew the circle. I got the hell out of there that night. And I have to admit, both Chris and I were looking back over our shoulders the whole way. Now, I had another young lady come down a little while after that. She was my Beltane princess at one of the Beltane ceremonies that I had conducted here. And that evening, we were down here, and we walked out toward those trees. I wanted to show her a couple of those old trees that I had gotten such vibrations off of. And while we were out there, she made a prophecy to me that I would find my end between 3 trees, which is kind of odd because, here, let me show you something. Don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But right here, there are, well, you probably can't see it. It's a stump with it's a common trunk that divides into 3 pretty solid trees. And what I'm doing standing here, I have no idea. Maybe I'm just trying to push the envelope. But like I said, this isn't Bigfoot related. It's not cryptid related in any classic sense of the word. So why am I posting this? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of things that go on, not only out here in the woods, but in the world, and you know, in general. There are a lot of things out there that that we have no real awareness of. We have no real understanding of. Just because we can't define it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means we don't understand it. We can't classify it. I suppose in a sense that's what I really wanted to say tonight. So, you know, this first time video, I'm stammering like mad and probably stumbling over half my words, but I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Here it is, close to Halloween. Happy Halloween. Give it a thought. You know, maybe some of those strange things that you just sort of pass off are things you really need to take time to look into and consider more. You know, I think about the difference between a believer and a skeptic. You know, believer's willing to take the time to look into a thing. Skeptic, he wants to sit in that armchair and just ridicule. I know in the Bible there's a verse of scripture in Proverbs, I think it is, says it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but it is the honor of kings to search a matter out, to paraphrase. Which is more kingly in character? A person who wants to sit in an armchair and lift not one finger to discover for themselves the reality of something. They just want to scorn. They just want to mock and ridicule. Or the person who, despite the mockery, despite the ridicule, is willing to take the time to get out and look for themselves, to search out the truth for themselves. Which is more kingly in character? Me, I don't know if the world will ever admit that Bigfoot exists. I can't even tell you for myself that he does. I've never seen him. I certainly wouldn't shame anyone who says that they have. And I've certainly no reason to call anyone a liar. But I've never seen him myself. But I do know this. I want to know. I want to know for myself. I don't care if the world ever comes to the conclusion that Bigfoot exists. I want to come to the conclusion. Is he real or not? To me, that's good enough. Hey, let's have this conversation down below where I posted, you know. I mean, you feel free to write whatever you want. Call me a dick, call me a fool, you know. Call me whatever you want, but at least call me. Well, thank y'all. Happy Halloween. Have a good night.